Hey everyone, welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to discuss regarding the next security profile, which is called as the DoS protection profile. So DoS stands for denial of service. Okay, so the next topic, as I've told, it is DoS protection profile, which is part of your security profile topic, right? Now, what is the meaning of this? So denial of service is basically, it's kind of a attack to what generally happens from outside. So let's say we have got an attacker PC on the outside, and let's say it generates some sort of attack types, which could be based on TCP flood, right? Or it could be based on UDP flood, or it could be based on ICMP flood. So some severe kinds of attack. So let us say this is going to be my organization server, right? This router, let's say it's my organization server, and it is sitting in the DMZ zone as an example, or might be in the inside zone. So let's say this attacker tries to do some exfiltration on this particular server by exhausting all its resources, right? So make sure it will send so much amount of TCP, UDP, or ICMP based floods, maximize amount of traffic, so that it will get exhausted and it could not respond to any legitimate packets hereafter. Okay, so in that case this kind of attack is called as a DoS attack, denial of service attack. Or might be you have different type of DoS, which is also called as distributed denial of service attack, which happens from multiple attack sources. Okay, so yeah, so we'll discuss regarding how to protect that. So this attacker willing to send millions of TCP flood or UDP flood based traffic or ICMP flood based traffic, ensure that if those kind of packets is trying to enter your Palo Alto firewall from outside to inside, outside to DMZ, the Palo Alto firewall must have this DoS protection profile enabled in its security policy, so it could be blocked. Okay, so to configure that, very simple. So what we do is, if you go to the attacker PC over here, which is my Kali Linux PC, if I can open up a terminal and check its connectivity. So first of all, what is its IP address? It is 123.144 right here, and it can communicate with 123.112.0.1, which is the Palo Alto firewall. And in the Palo Alto firewall, if we look under the security policy, you have got an inside to outside policy, and also what modification I have done is in the source zone, I have allowed the policy from untrust zone from this 123.110 subnet to the destination, which is the trust zone, right? And the destination address could be any, right? Over here, application is any, default service or URL category, and action is allow. So basically I've allowed the traffic from untrust to trust for testing purpose. Okay, and now my job will be to go to your object tab and go to this DoS protection profile, which is under my security profile category. So select this DoS protection profile, and you don't have any sort of default profile over here, so let's go ahead and add one. So you can give, let us say, DoS protection profile, say 1, and there are two types, one is aggregate and one is classified. So let's say we go with the default aggregate one, and we can do flood protection or we can do resource protection, and where you can define the maximum concurrent session that can be supported. Or if it is based on flood protection, so different types of TCP based SYN flood or UDP floods or ICMP flood, ICMP v6 flood, or you can define other type of flooding based packets could be determined and could be stopped. So if you let us say look for SYN flood, then there are categories of SYN flood where it can take an action based on random early drop or might be drop SYN cookies. So, and these are the different alarm connections per seconds rate. So alarm rate is 10,000 connections per second, in which the alarm rate will be triggered Activate rate is again 10,000 per second, 10,000 connections per second. Max rate is 40,000 connections per second, and block duration will be for 5 minutes or 300 seconds, right? So yeah, in your case, you can actually minimize this for your lab testing purpose. Let's say this is for 10 seconds, so everything you can minimize it for 10 as an example, right? Likewise for UDP flood, you can enable that, right, and make everything to a lower value for lab testing purpose. Okay, ICMP flood, you can again minimize this. All right. Yep, so you have made a DoS protection profile under this aggregate type category, okay, and change the values for testing purpose. That's it. And now your job will be to go to your so basically, so far you have went to the policies, you went to the security policy, and you've attached that particular profile in that action category, but you don't have over here. So my DoS protection profile is not available in this profile setting in my security policy rule. So what you can do is you can go to the same one, the policies, but just below this rule. So you have got this another tab called as DoS protection option over here. So let's select that, and we can add this DoS protection security policy. So let's say this is DoS protection security policy 1, something like that. And source zone, so let's say source zone, my traffic is let's say from untrust. Source address, I can define specifically if it is 123.1.1.0/24. in the lab it is for testing purpose, but in your case it could be different. You can select any. Destination zone, say it is trust, it could be DMZ as well. Destination address, in my case let us say it is 10. that LAN subnet, but in that case it could be any. In your case there might be some different subnet. In case of optional protection, you can look for a particular service. If any DoS attack is happening, so what is the action that you want to take? Deny, allow, protect. So let's say I go with deny. I can define that particular rule and define for a particular schedule time period as well. I can define log forwarding as well, where I can send those particular log to an external syslog or SIAM server. And under this aggregate category, you have to select this DoS protection profile which you have selected or configured earlier, or if you have configured under the classified category, you can select that as well and click on OK, right? So you have made this DoS protection security policy over here. You have made the DoS protection profile which you have called inside this DoS protection security policy, right? And you have allowed the traffic from untrust to trust in your generic security policy rule. So let's go ahead and commit this respective changes. So let's wait for the commit to happen, and then we will tell you how to test it. So it's almost over. Yeah, the configuration got committed successfully. Yeah, so close this, and now we can go back to the attacker PC, which is the Kali Linux PC from the outside, and I hope it is open twice. Just a second. Okay, so yeah, so let's say from this Kali Linux PC I'm going to test to my inside router, which is acting as a server, let's say. So in the inside router we have this IP address configured 10.1.1.25, this loopback is configured, and the inside router points the default route from my Palo Alto firewall using the next hop IP of 10.1.1.201. Okay, so if you want you can look that as well. So this is the routing table. So it has got a default route pointed via 10.1.1.201 gateway, and if I want to reach the Palo Alto, from the inside server, if it tries to ping 123.1.1.44, the Kali Linux PC on the outside, it's working fine. And likewise from Kali, if I tries to ping 10.1.1.25, it should work fine. But since you have allowed that particular profile, might be because of that it is getting dropped because of the number of packets, because you've reduced the values, right? Now what you can do is you can allow this ICMP flood for testing. So you can use one tool called as hping. So you can use this command called as sudo hping3 as utility, which you can use, and protocol number is 1 for ICMP, dash you can say faster, and you do it for 10.1.1.25. so you can generate this. Okay, and next you can go back to the Palo Alto firewall and look for the monitor tab, and you can look for the respective traffic in the log. I filtered using 123.1.124, right? So you can see that there is a ping traffic, there is ping traffic which is getting allowed, and it should be reported in the thread as well. All right, so it is shown as nmap, but you should see it might take some time. It should show you as a DoS traffic, and should show that as an ICMP traffic. All right, so that's the place normally we'll go ahead and check it. Let it run for some time and you can check that. All right, so let us go and give you some key points regarding the DoS protection profile. DoS protection security profile. So what are the key points you include here is so a DoS protection profile, one second guys. So I can say denial of service protection profile in Palo Alto networks helps to mitigate any volumetric and resource exhaustion attacks by limiting the number of connections and packets per second, which is called as PPS, from a single source or to a specific destination. Okay, so what are the different types of DoS protection that is available in Palo Alto? So the different types of DoS protection are, first thing is your flood protection. So flood protection could be against any sort of volumetric attacks. For example, it could be based on SYN attacks of TCP or ICMP flood, as we have discussed, and UDP floods. Okay, and basically any type of attack which will limit the rate of packets. So Palo Alto must be able to limit the rate of packets to prevent overwhelming network resources. Good. Next is make sure you have got this option called as resource protection. I think I've shown that in the lab as well. So resource protection is used against any connection exhaustion. So your Palo Alto firewall should have some sort of limitations on number of connections per second. So if you enable that, it will limit. So it will limit the maximum concurrent sessions per source IP or destination zone. Okay, it will help prevent attacks that consume firewall session tables. Okay, so what are the different components you have in case of configuration? So the first thing is you need to go ahead and select a DoS or create a DoS protection profile. So ensure that you define the threshold for the connection limits and the flood protection. It can be applied for any individual IP, which is called as a classified one, or it could be for entire zone, which is called as the aggregate one, right? So if it is for individual IP or subnet, we call this as classified type of DoS protection profile, or if it is respective to some zones, it is based on aggregate. Okay, and next is your DoS policy rule, which you need to go ahead and create in the security policy. So ensure that it should match the traffic based on the source and destination, application and zone. It will apply the DoS protection profile to enforce the respective limits, right? So yeah, and I've shown you the steps as well, and you can enable this in your security profile and go to the monitor option, go to the threat logs to check for the DoS attacks. All right, perfect. So I think it's clear, so let's go to the next topic and see you in the next lecture. Thank you for watching, guys.